Hey, Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Betway. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3 Raider Facts and our special guest, Peggy Holmes, and we're here to talk some Raiders football together.
Peggy, let me be the first to welcome you in. Welcome in. It's been a while since we've been all together, but we got some good things to talk about today.
Yes, we do. And I'm really glad to be here with two of my favorite people in the Raider Nation. It's always good to share some thoughts.
Well, we are glad to have you.
We're going to have a good time with this.
All right, today on the show, we're going to talk about all things winning as the Las Vegas Raiders finally got into the win column with a big victory over the division rival Broncos.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you, so here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check us out on the web at onlynationpod.com.
Here's the latest Raider news.
Josh Jacobs put the team on his back as he posted a career-high 144 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on 28 carries. For his number 28. Jacobs ran with purpose and he ran with leadership. And the Raiders came away with their first victory of the season, a 32-23 triumph over Denver.
I'm going to pitch this one to Peggy first. Just get your impressions of the run game, which we've been calling for forever, and Josh Jacobs' performance overall.
Well, I mean, we have to start by talking about that O-line when we're talking about the run game, because you notice that there were some things that happened. Number one, Andre James returns to center. That allows you to move Parham over to the right guard. And then it was so interesting. What's his name? Ilamanor or whatever started at right tackle.
Yeah, Luminor.
I don't know. And Tom, I don't know whether you saw that. And I think he had one false start penalty. He was out of there, and Mumford finished the game.
He deserved that.
Heidi and I talked about that.
and we would laugh but I think that as that O-line gels, we're going to start to see some interesting things. The other thing that happened, and I know you guys saw this, was that tackle eligible Sharon coming in. And I did notice that Josh McDaniels was attempting to run other plays from that formation. But there's no doubt that extra left tackle helped.
Yeah, I think Huron basically came in because Moreau was on the shelf. But I do like the fact that he came in and is working that jumbo package with 2 tight ends. And I think that he may do that more going forward.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see how they start. If they're going to use that formation, what kind of plays? I saw a pass out in the flat to Jacobs from that formation. I don't know whether people noticed. Also about a 13, 14-yard pass to Hollins from that same formation. I'm not sure, but I don't know. You think McDaniels has the ability to keep that going, keep the creativity going?
Well, I think we might have seen the establishment of our offensive line. It might have been the first game where we really saw that. And hopefully he is able to keep that going. He definitely did try to be creative during the game, a few different ways.
Mm-hmm. Helps when you have an O-line.
Onside kick in the middle of the game was definitely creative. But I think that we might have seen the establishment of the line for the first time in 4 games.
And I know, Tom, you were happy to also see Josh run, but I'm going to say a few things about Josh that may not be that popular. And I'm sure, of course, we don't know what went on in the mind of guys like Ziegler when they were deciding not to give him an option this year. But one of the things that the Raiders have lacked for many years, I think since McFadden really, is a home run back. And we have one sitting on the bench, and his name is Zeus. Okay. I think he had a 22-yard run yesterday's
He did.
game. Nice block by
He did.
Waller, too, to spring him. But what I'm thinking is that Josh, if he's going to be creative, he can actually use Jacobs, maybe split those carries a little more evenly, maybe give Josh 20 carries, maybe give Zeus at least 10. I think we need that home run back, that kind of threat in the backfield. What are your thoughts about that, guys?
You and I are actually on the same page on this. I love Josh Jacobs. I've loved him ever since he came into the league, but this is not a running back driven league. And of course it's here today, gone tomorrow. And I think the Raiders understood that. And that's one of the reasons why they didn't pick up that 5th-year option. But now they did draft 2 backs in the most recent draft. I like both of them. And I think Zeus is going to be the guy going forward. So I really hope that Josh Jacobs balls out. I would like to see him make good bank or good coin next year, whether it's with the Raiders or another team. But I think we have the next guy up already. And I'm like you, I hope that they start to split the carries up and give him a little bit more of the load, because I think he is really the guy going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I also agree. It's the running back is not a thing of the past. I don't want to say that, because they're definitely very important in every game. But they're a dime a dozen. And you don't give your running back $18 million a year. And that's why they did not pick up the 5th-year option on Jacobs. They just don't want to spend that much on a running back when they can get ones that they drafted that are going to be just as capable, if not more, and they'll be able to run them for 4 years.
Yeah, you're not going to see very many guys in the league going forward getting that good 5th-year bang for their buck as far as from the running back position, because like you said, every 4 years they bring another guy out. And I hate it for people that play running back, because it is a vital position for the team, but it's just not valued in the NFL to the extent where guys can expect having a long career and making a long-term bank account out of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree with what both of you said, and I'm hoping that Josh will catch on with another team if we don't keep him. But that goes back to something we talked about, Heidi, for sure. This whole idea of keeping 5 backs on the roster, and the first 3 games, we barely saw them. Okay? It was something that mystified most of us football people. Tom, I know it had to mystify you. Okay, you got 5 backs on the roster. I know your offensive line isn't where you wanted to be. Why are you just not running? We all know that the run opens up the pass. The way Derrick Henry's run in the first half in the Tennessee game, what it did was it opened up Ryan Tannehill opportunities, and he took full advantage. What are you thinking about that? I mean,
not just 5 backs on the roster, but 5 good backs on the roster.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking about.
All right. Derek Carr didn't have a record-breaking day by any means.
Mm-hmm.
He was 21 of 34 for 188 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and he was sacked twice. More importantly, Derek used his legs and gained 40 yards on 7 carries, including a key 20-yard run towards the end of the first half that set up a field goal that put the Raiders up 19-16 at the half.
And that run really was key at the end, and I think it set the tone for the Raiders and pretty much all of Raider Nation that Derek was going to do what he needed to do. He was going to step up and actually use his legs and escape that pocket and make some positive yards. Now, Heidi and I talked before the broadcast started. I'm still having issues with some of Derek's throws. I think he's working some of the throws into too tight windows that's not really giving his receivers an opportunity to make the catch. Now, Devontae Adams notwithstanding, I think they have a little rhythm going on between the two of them to where they have ball placement issues, not nearly as much as Derek does with other receivers. But I still think that Derek's trying to force it into situations where he shouldn't. I think that there are situations where, particularly when they get down close to the red zone, they should just pound the ball and run it. A couple of times they ended up with field goals as opposed to touchdowns, and that can't happen going forward, particularly against the Chiefs. But overall, I think Derek had a good game. Not a great game, but definitely a stable, solid performance.
And I know y'all are going to get to this later about the role defense played in the ability for Derek not to have any touchdown passes and not to be forced to carry the whole load on his shoulders. But I want to go to what I have termed as the Kardashians, the people that really secretly want a running quarterback, right? A guy whose second instinct or even first instinct is to run. And oh, by the way, guys that rarely win Super Bowls. But we won't get into that. It's no coincidence that Derek ran for 40 yards when our offensive line blocked and finally gave him lanes to run in. It's no coincidence that Josh had 144 yards rushing, and the other backs added to a total 212 yards rushing. It's not coincidence it happened this game. Why? Because for the first time, Derek didn't see big bodies strewn in front of him, in his face, flushing him out of the pocket, making him think twice about what he was going to do next. I mean, you can't escape good run blocking up front for giving Derek those huge lanes, those huge openings to do what he did. He is not a runner by instinct. He never will be. And I think Raider fans need to lower their expectations. He's trying. And you can see he's not an athlete. He doesn't have vision. He's not going to see creases and cracks. That lane that you saw from your comfy couch in the living room, Derek didn't see it because it's not his instinct to see. He's a quarterback, not a running back.
Yeah, but I think it was definitely a case of Derek realized, hey, we've lost the last 3 games, and I do need to take this team on my back. And that lane is there, and we need to score before the end of the half. I'm going to take that shot. And it was a lane that was big enough and pretty enough, and he was able to barrel through it. And he moved around a little bit, and, I was so proud of him. I really am. I was so proud of him. He did a great job.
I mean, it's just not his first instinct. That's all I'm saying. I mean,
no, it isn't.
He's certainly capable of doing it, but it is not in his nature. He was taught, Tom, he's a pocket passer. At his core, he's a pocket passer.
And he always will be. And again, as I've heard say many times before, a tiger can never change its stripes. And that's just who Derek is. And I'm just glad he went through a whole game without any picks. And I'll give up the one sack. Sacks are going to happen. But if you can limit it to just one, then, the offensive line kept him upright. They did their job. For the most part, Derek did good as far as the passes go. And I think the mix-up of the run and the pass was really the thing that opened up the offense more than anything else.
Balance is key. And the other part about the O-line, as that O-line improves, I think you'll see way better performances out of Carr. He's just one of those quarterbacks that has to have that protection. He just has to have it.
We just have to hope that the line stands up and doesn't get hit hard with injuries. Now that we've got the line stabilized, we cannot have a lot of shifting, moving pieces in and out. Otherwise, we'll be right back where we started.
Yep. Fingers crossed, Heidi.
Oh, yeah. The defense held the Broncos to just 7 second-half points, and they picked up their first defensive touchdowns in 3 years when Amik Robinson ran back a recovered fumble 68 yards in the second quarter. Max Crosby had 4 tackles, all for losses, and 2 quarterback sacks on the day. Nate Hobbs was back from injury and also registered a sack.
All right, Peggy, we're talking about the defense now, so we'll turn this one over to you. There we go. We were just talking about it.
Once again, no coincidence that we got our first victory of the year when the defense finally played 4 quarters. Not only that, we had the 2 things that I say were essential to victories, and that is sacks and turnovers. I think Raider fans haven't seen a defense take control of a game in so long that they don't recognize how critical it is to the play of our offense. And Heidi and Tom, I know you'll agree with me. The key to me, the key defensive series, I mean, that fumble return was beautiful, but was when we pinned in the fourth quarter, when we pinned Denver at the 1 yard line and forced them to punt. And we ended up in Denver territory. Carr, Jacobs took that into the end zone for the game-winning touchdown, game-sealing touchdown. You don't get that without a great defensive performance. And we got 6 points out of it too.
I agree with you. And there is nothing that energizes a crowd, particularly a home crowd. You can say a big touchdown, you can say a turnover, but in my opinion, I've been in lots of stadiums, but nothing energizes a crowd better than a big sack, particularly in a big moment. And when Max got his sack, you could just feel the energy in Allegiant Stadium just kind of blow the roof off the place. It really was good. I think the team felt that, and I think it gave them the extra energy and that extra push that it needed to kind of carry them on through the game.
It was really nice to see them put 4 quarters together, just like Peggy was saying. And that second half, they just locked down. They really did. And it made all the difference in the world.
And mind you, they've had lockdown halves. Let's not, let's not forget about their contributions to throwing shutouts, near shutouts. I mean, didn't they have one with the Cardinals? The first half, they locked them down.
Yeah.
The Chargers.
And in the Tennessee game, I mean, they did a good job, and Henry was absolutely missing in action in the second half. We needed 4 quarters of that. And oh, by the way, let's remind Raider Nation, defense wins championships.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That was a damn good, hard-fought victory in the division. Those were head coach Josh McDaniels' first words to the team in the locker room following the game. He also indicated that the team was learning how to win together and that the team was getting better and better. He also made the statement that players win games.
And I would agree with that last statement probably more than anything else. We can talk about coaching schemes, we can talk about play calling, everything else, but I think over the past 3 weeks, we have seen what happens when players don't step up and make plays in critical situations. Al Davis always said, when you have great coaches and then you have great players on top of that. Now, I still trust in the coaching scheme. I still trust in the fact that we're moving in the right direction and that we've got things going in the right direction. I'm willing to be patient and trust it. Now, if we'd gone 0-4, I might have been one of the other people getting ready to light the ship on fire. But, fortunately, we're not there yet. But, I'm going to trust in the process. And McDaniels has things going. But I do trust in the statement he made that players win games. We have to have our big players step up like they did this past Sunday and continue on that same vein.
What say you, Peggy?
Well, I mean, I totally agree with that because you were missing those key times where, for instance, on defense, where in the Tennessee game where we had to make a stop in the first half, we could not get them off the field. There's nobody that could get them off the field. Max Crosby couldn't get them off the field. We needed a turnover. We got that in the second half of that Tennessee game. Unfortunately, our offense couldn't respond, but so many heroes. I mean, Sunday, I was watching my baby Diablo with 8 tackles, 3 of them solo. And before Perryman went out with a concussion, by the way, he had 5 total tackles and, of course, 2 for losses. I mean, people are talking about the absence of Chandler Jones, but I say you get better with that play on the inside, and you're going to see Jones start to make a difference. He is probably still in shock that the Raiders don't have better inside play. He probably was the kind of guy that fed off that push in the middle that flushed the quarterback. Yesterday, I don't know whether you noticed, but they used linebackers to help with that rush push in the middle. They really needed to do that.
And, actually, I don't think Chandler had that bad a game. he was putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. It didn't show up in the stats, but they really had to require sometimes double team blocks and things. He was really clogging up the outside, and I think played a more consistent game than he has in the past. It just didn't show up in the box score.
Yeah, he was right there at the ankles on that Nate Hobbs sack. He was right there.
Yeah, getting closer and closer. And like you said, they did have to double team him in the second half. And you'll see Chandler get better as our play in the middle of the D-line gets better. For Max, I mean, he's just pure energy. So, I mean, he doesn't feed off of what the guys in the middle are doing. You know, he feeds off his own technique. And thank God we have a guy like that on the D-line to take some of the pressure off of the people in the middle.
All right, special teams plagued the Raiders on Sunday. Daniel Carlson missed an extra point, and the punt return team gave up 66 yards on 3 punt returns, one of which set up a Denver touchdown. And who made the call to have an onside kick in the first half of the game?
I know.
It ended up giving Denver 3 more points, courtesy of a field goal.
All right, Peggy, you're up.
Oh, my goodness. And, you know, you made a statement a little earlier about, you know, players win games and coaching. I'm going to tell you, I'm a coaching gal. And decisions made on that sidelines affect what the players see and do. I can't believe that he would have made that call. But you see, I believe that McDaniels himself has some growing to do. Okay? He's got some growing pains. He forgot what it means when you're head coach. Those decisions are game changing. You're not the offensive coordinator anymore. You're the head coach. So you call that onside kick. Why? Well, only the little gremlins, right, hiding in his mind. These little gremlins running around, you know, taking notes. Maybe they'll share with us why that decision was made. Special teams, I am always going to give Carlson a pass because he is our red zone offense. That's when we go back to coaching again. That's got to change. But Carlson's our red. So I'm going to give him a little pass for missing his little point after the little 68-yard fumble return. He missed that thing. I'm going to give him that. The return teams, we got to keep an eye on that, don't you think?
Yeah, indeed we do. And one thing that Carlson did, and I mentioned this on the last podcast, is that he wasn't getting the ball out of the end zone on the kickoffs. And that was a question mark for me. But in this particular game, that didn't happen. There were no returns on the kickoffs. So he did his job there. What we may have to start doing is we may just have to start having A.J. Cole aim for the sidelines all the time. You know, like Ray Guy used to do. They do the call for corner kicks, and let's not risk having big returns because Tom McMahon, who came over from Denver, by the way, and I was not a big fan of that hire from day one, he has proven to me exactly what I thought he would, and that he is not the guy.
Mediocre at best, you know, makes you miss Versace, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Heidi and I were talking before the game started, and I said, you know, I thought for a minute when Carlson was kicking off that maybe he stumbled and was almost falling down when he kicked the ball. I thought there's no way he would have done that on purpose. And then, yeah, it turns out that it was.
Yeah, I had to look at the replay and be like, no, he really did intentionally kick it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with Peggy. I am letting him slide on that little missed PAT. He pretty much is our red zone offense. And fortunately, in this game, it didn't make a difference. We were very lucky. Brandon McManus, he had a bad snap in the next touchdown that the Broncos had. So he also missed the PAT. Mm-hmm. That was through no fault of his. I believe that was probably on their long snapper. But we were fortunate because that's two kickers that usually do not miss extra points. And Carlson and McManus, they're both very good kickers. So we're very fortunate that we got that trade-off with the Broncos, and they also missed theirs. And it didn't end up affecting the final score. But yeah, in our Silver and Black Ladies Night show, I've at times not given special teams that Peggy has given them because of the coverage. And
she's been talking about that. It's no question. And now I'm going to have to start looking like who is actually out there. Okay, for one thing, Tom, and maybe you could help out with this, the personnel that's out there. I mean, are we talking about second stringers, third stringers, first stringers that don't want to get injured? I don't know.
From what I've seen, it seems to be more an indication of where the lanes are and what the coverage assignments are. Because when I saw some of the guys running down, particularly on the punt returns, some of the guys weren't staying in their lanes, and some were just kind of all over the place. And so if you have a real shifty return person, if they dodge one or two players, all of a sudden they shoot through the gap, and there you go. You, as a special teamer, have to know what the different layers are. You almost have to run it in layers, where you have the primary gunners going down, going straight for the ball carrier, but then the secondary layer in case he shoots through the gap. So that's something that the whole team has to work with together, and that the special teams coaches have to work with the team together with as well.
Right. That's right.
All right, we've talked about some of the things that have been missing from the Raiders team so far this year. So what made this game so different?
So Heidi, why don't you take that one first?
Yes.
Well, I think it is the thing that we have been screaming for the entire season, and that is we did not go away from the run game. We embraced the run game and went with it. And Josh Jacobs definitely responded. 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. He, for once, was the red zone offense that got touchdowns. And
Lord have mercy.
It was amazing. Some of those red zone plays, Carr, I would have to say he choked. But he gave the ball to Jacobs. Jacobs ran the ball into the end zone. That was the difference. Even Carr, like we said, even he was moving around on the ground. And White was able to contribute as well. It was a good game on the ground. It was a balanced offensive attack, and that was the difference.
Heidi, totally agree with you. For one, the sense of urgency was there. Many people within Raider Nation have been screaming about running the ball more, and on Sunday they actually did that. Josh Jacobs has proven every week what a great back he is, and I don't think you can underestimate his leadership and the boost that he gives to the team. But I do want to call out 3 of the players. The first is Derek Carr. Now, statistically, we talked about this earlier, he may not have had as good a game as Russell Wilson, but I think he recognized a lot of the coverages pretty well. And he took off with his legs and picked up some critical first downs. Now, the other 2 guys are on defense, and they were both returning from injury. I don't think you can overlook the impact that both Denzel Perryman and Nate Hobbs have on that defensive side of the ball. They were both flying around, making plays, and I think that, besides Max, that those 2 guys are the Raiders' 2 most valuable defenders. Now, Perryman, who's just coming back from an ankle injury, went out with a concussion before halftime. So I sure hope he's able to come back for the game versus the Chiefs.
One thing that I wanted to add, and I agree with both of you all's points very much as far as keys of the game. The one thing I always look at after every game is penalties. Because, see, that tells me about focus. That tells me about emotions. That tells me about discipline. Where's the team's heads at? 4 penalties, 25 yards. As opposed to 7 penalties for 85 yards and 10 penalties for over 100 yards the week before in the Cardinal game. So when I see a team keeping those penalties 5 and below, that's a team that has decided they're going to tighten it up. The other thing that I was a little missing a little in this game, even though you're looking at keys to winning, I'm concerned about Waller. And I'm concerned about him, and I know you're going to address this a little later on, but I'm concerned not only about his targeting and selection, but his focus and what he's doing. Now, he had a few key blocks. in some of those long runs. I mean, he had an excellent day blocking, but I'm concerned about his focus as well. And I think that would be something we need to pay attention to in addition to the red zone offense.
All right, so let's take a look ahead to the Kansas City game. Do the Raiders pick up their second win in a row, or do they still have a deep hole to try and dig out of?
Peggy, what do you think?
I try my best not to do predictions. I left my crystal ball in the other room. But I'm going to tell you one thing. The Raiders absolutely have to run the ball the way they ran against Denver. And I don't think Kansas City defense is going to let us do it like that. We absolutely have to keep Mahomes off the field. That's the one thing the Raiders have been unable to do in every Kansas City meeting back as far as I can remember. Keeping control of the game, winning time of possession, which, oh, by the way, we did 34 minutes to 25 in the Denver game. We have to have a game like that to win. I mean, if we can't run, we're not going to win. It's as simple as that.
All right, Heidi, what say you?
Well, I also hate to give predictions, but I know that T3 likes to put that in the script, and our listeners like to hear what we have to say. But I do not see the Raiders coming out on top. I think that the Raiders definitely have the players and the ability to take down the Chiefs. And like Peggy said, run the ball, establish the ground game, keep Mahomes off the field. It's very possible for the Raiders to win. I just don't see them doing it. I think that part of that might be the weakness of having Josh McDaniels as a coach, because honestly, I don't think he's that good of a head coach yet. I really don't. I think that weakness is going to show when the Raiders play the Chiefs. I don't want to even venture a score, but I do see the Chiefs coming out on top. But the Raiders with the ability to win. So don't be surprised if they pull it off, but I would be surprised if they pull it off.
Now, Peggy, we on the podcast, we used to talk about preparing crow and eating crow in case we were wrong. And I will be happy. I'm telling you both now, I will be happy to come on board next week and eat crow if I am wrong. Now, I was wrong in the first two games, which I thought the Raiders were going to win. I was right when I said they'd lose against Tennessee.
Should have won.
Correct. Should have won. I was correct in saying that they would not win against Tennessee, and I was correct last week saying that they would beat Denver. So, having said all that, I think the main reason the Chiefs were able to beat Tampa Bay this past Sunday is because the Bucs put the ball on the ground on the opening kickoff, and the Chiefs scored just a touchdown just one play later. Now, the Raiders simply cannot do that and play from behind. If the run defense can continue to play well, it'll all come down to how they can defend those slant passes across the middle. Now, I'm scared about what Travis Kelce may do in this game, which is dependent upon Mahomes having enough time to find his favorite receiver. On offense, I think the Raider offense is going to have to mix it up with the run, with short passes out of the backfield, and then take some deep shots to Devontae, because I don't trust the KC secondary. This game may come down to who has the ball last and can get that score at the end of the game. Now, the Chiefs will have the home crowd and the momentum, and although I think the Raiders will play them tough, I think KC will come away with a 37-31 victory.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to follow up on Heidi's point about, McDaniel's level of coaching ability. And I think I alluded to this earlier. The first three games this season, he met with coaches that had experience with the teams that they've been with. And last week, he met a brand new head coach, Nathan Hackett, who has an offensive coordinator with zero experience. Only say that to say is we saw, in addition to players not rising up to make plays in those first three games, we saw McDaniels getting out-coached a lot. And unfortunately, Andy Reid is in that category. He is the granddaddy of the coaching fraternity. And he is experienced, and he not only outcoached, I mean, I can't even go back that far. What, Del Rio? Was he there when Allen was there? Probably not. But definitely Del Rio, definitely always outcoached Gruden. And I think he's going to outcoach McDaniels too.
And he has a quarterback that can do it all.
Mm-hmm.
So far, we've got a guy who can, has that innate ability. He sees the field so well. I mean,
360-degree spin move and a jump shot for the touchdown.
Exactly.
It's not even fair.
And Tom, I don't know if you go with me on this. I've watched how teams have tried to defend him. You cannot stop Mahomes by blitzing him.
Yeah.
Even by sacking him. What you do is you stay in his lanes.
Exactly.
He's a guy that, as long as he's able to see downfield with just one eye open, he's going to complete a pass. What you've got to do is make sure he can't see.
When Tampa Bay bottled up the harbor on him a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl, he could not do anything.
No, he could not find, and you could see him hide. He was like a child searching for his lost dog. He was looking downfield, buying time, looking downfield for Hill and Kelsey. He could not find them, and therefore he could not throw. And I mean, you could see the frustration on his face when he can't see downfield, and he can't see. And now he's got Valdez, Scantling, Juju.
They still get it done.
I mean, but maybe if you put them both together, they were Tyreek. Okay. I think that the key to Mahomes is you got to bottle up those lanes. You got to bottle up his receivers so he can't see them. And even if they get separation, he can't see them. He'll get frustrated, and then he'll start.
And those big linemen have to have hands up all the time. I don't know how many times that we go over this over and over.
Can't see downfield. You can't let him see. Whatever you have to do to block him up, chasing him around only wears you out. That's not the answer.
Yeah. Except for Max.
Yeah.
Energizer Bunny.
Yeah, his motor might get there and end the play. But when you get Mahomes frustrated, he starts making mistakes. He starts taking chances that he isn't able to do. And when you have him in that position, oh boy, you can win that game.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, T3, I think it's about time we have another edition of your T3's Top 3.
T3's Top 3.
Okay. Here is this week's version of T3's Top 3. Number 1, last week I was screaming about Daniel Carlson not kicking the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs. Well, on Sunday, there was a huge improvement in that area. Now we just need to see some improvement by the rest of the special teams, in particular the punt coverage team. Number 2, Devontae Adams still needs to get his touches, and the Kansas City secondary may be primed for the picking. You may see a couple of deep shots early, but I'm hoping the DA can make this his statement game, just like Josh Jacobs had his this past week. And number 3, the offensive line may be stabilizing now. Andre James was back from concussion and back at center. Alex Bars was at left guard, and Dylan Parham shifted over to right guard, and Colton Miller and Thayer Munford held down the tackle spots. I made the prediction before the season started that John Simpson may have a limited amount of time with the Silver and Black, so I'm keeping an eye on him now. If he's called upon as the next man up, he may be looking at his last chance to gain favor and become a trusted piece within this offensive line grouping. And that is this week's T3's Top 3.
Well, I got to say, John Simpson did not even make it to the active list yesterday. So he is...
There is a God in heaven. Thank you.
So he has definitely fallen out of favor. So
He has.
And there's a reason for that.
I made the point that, right after preseason, people were so busy focusing on, how terrible Alex Leatherwood was playing on the wrong side at the wrong position. But nevertheless, Okay, they put all their effort into making him look so bad, it was an easy cut. But they still had Simpson as the starting guy. And I'm like, there's other trash on that line that needs to be addressed.
I really didn't think he was going to make the 53 man.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't understand. If someone told me it was because they thought, we were maybe short of guards. And that, just because they didn't have anybody else, but things got so bad. I'm sure. I mean, we've got Bars, we've got Parham, we've got Mumford, 3 brand new names. And the guard play for the Raiders for the last 2 years has just been atrocious. So I'm hopeful that these young men are going to step up.
And I think they are.
We could have and should have had Jimmy Morrissey still on the team.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That one's painful.
Yeah. There are some cuts that, we, in retrospect, we wish we had back. But, Carmen Brasillo is now our Dr. Frankenstein. He's going to create a new line out of these monsters and make them into something that Carr can rely on and the Raiders as a team can rely on.
Yeah. And like I said, I think might have seen the establishment of our offensive line for the season on Sunday. And I think they did okay. The rushing game certainly responded well. And I think if they continue to go with Bars and Parham and Munford, we're going to see some improvement in that area, and we're going to see some stability there.
But Peggy, I think you're absolutely right. They have to keep the ball out of Kansas City's hands.
No other solution. That offense gets that ball, and they'll just be marching on you all day. You have to find a way to make your offense the offense that they can't get off the field.
Right.
All right, give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number, or send in a message via social media, and we'll share your thoughts. What is going on with Raider Roots this week, T3?
All right, we're getting closer and closer to the present. We just finished chronicling the 2004 season, and next up will be 2005. So we're currently working on that. Hope to have that out either by the end of this week or next week as we bring an end to the Norv Turner era and continue the decade-long coaching carousel for the Raiders. But I will say it right now, the 2005 season had the potential to be much more than it was.
Yes. And thank you so much for doing this. This is going to help a lot of Raider fans, and I've shared them, especially with our young Raider fans. Really, you want to complain about an 0-3 start now. Get a whiff of that era. And Heidi, we were going, and Tom knows this because he was with, we were going to games that we knew we were going to lose. Not only lose, we were going to get blown out. And we were still there cheering on our Raiders. But let's face it, 2005 is a season that I thought had a lot of promise.
Every year we have promise. Every year we got promise. Every year.
But things just, and they went off the rails early.
All right, T3, let's find out what we do or we don't know.
Okay, we're going to have some fun with this one. This time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and Peggy and all of our listening audience a Raiders-related question with a list of answers to choose from. It's multiple choice, so just give it your best guess. Here's this week's question. I feel certain that both of you are going to get this one right. Now, this past week, Amik Robertson scored the first Raiders defensive touchdown in a very long time. Who scored the last Raiders defensive touchdown back in 2019? Was it A, Eric Harris, B, Trayvon Mullen, or C, Nicholas Morrow? Heidi, I'm going to go with you first. What is your guess?
Why you got to put me on the spot, man?
I always lead off with you.
I am pretty sure I know the answer to this, and I believe that is A, Eric Harris.
All right, Peggy, do you agree, disagree?
I got to go with Eric Harris. And I mean, Nicholas piqued my curiosity, but no.
Yeah, I told Heidi I was thinking about throwing Jeff Heath in there as one of the choices, but the hint that I provided was he actually had 3 interceptions in 2019 and took 2 of them back for touchdowns, and the answer is A, Eric Harris. So you're both correct.
I thought I remember. Yeah. I mean, but wait a minute. What didn't that boy Conley? Didn't he intercept the ball in the Cleveland game or something? Remember, we were playing Cleveland. Maybe he didn't take it for a touchdown.
I think that was a couple of years prior to that, I believe.
I thought that Conley had intercepted the ball because I remember remarking.
I think he did.
And took it to the house, but I can't remember what year it was. So, I mean,
I think it might have been, I want to say if that's the Cleveland game, it might have been 2018.
It was Cleveland.
I think it was the year before. I think it was 18. I think you're right. But yeah.
Yeah. I was looking to see whether Conley's name was on the list. One of our many.
That was one of 2 great plays that Conley made. The other was when he was traded away.
Never to be seen nor heard of again. I mean, something about the shin splints.
It's bad. It's bad when you decide to trade a player to the team that you're playing the very next week.
Like, it doesn't really matter whether we see him again.
And he was too busy spending time in the training room to be able to give them any intelligence.
I can't
True
understand.
enough.
He missed the very next year for the Texans, the entire year. And then he tried to come back in, I think in 2020 or something like that, and got hurt again, was gone.
Yeah.
We now have the most important segment of the entire show. It's now time, Raider Nation, for Heidi's Heroes.
Yay.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
All right, Raider Nation. This week's hero, he had a quiet game on Sunday. He had 3 receptions for 24 yards, although he had a couple of big blocks that really made a difference in the game. This week's hero is Darren Waller. And I'm just going to read off this lovely article by Levi Edwards on Raiders.com so you can look that up yourselves. Darren Waller continues to use his redemption story as a motivator for others. Raiders star tight end has been selected as the Week 4 NFLPA Community MVP after recently sharing his inspiring story with 400 servicemen and women at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. He also discussed his principles for preventing and overcoming substance abuse, which he shares through the Darren Waller Foundation, created in 2020 to equip youth to avoid and overcome addiction to drugs and alcohol and support youth and their families during their recovery and treatment journey. I am thankful for my selection as the NFLPA Week 4 Community MVP, Waller said. So many players in the league impact their communities and deserve to be recognized for their service. Waller's been vocal about his life journey struggling with addiction, which could have resulted in his NFL career and life running short. His story has been well documented in the past, most recently on HBO's Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. The MVP honor comes after Waller was the Raiders nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award last season for his contributions to the community. Darren Waller, you're our hero so many times. But for this reason, you're Heidi's hero this week.
Peggy, I'm going to pitch that one to you first.
Well, I mentioned him in brief passing earlier, and, you got to be pulling for a guy like that. I mean, the comeback story is just unbelievable. But I'm sensing that in this offense, he doesn't know quite where he fits. And I want him to fit because he belongs with us. And they gave him a contract that says he belongs with us. And I want to believe, but I can't believe that McDaniels doesn't have a stable of design plays for a guy with the talent of Waller.
Well, looking at how McDaniels runs the team, I can believe that he doesn't have that.
I am hoping that we'll see a few new wrinkles this coming week. And of course, Darren Waller, I made this statement on several shows before the season started. I really believed that he was going to be the MVP of the team this year. He has not gotten off to that kind of start, but I still think that there's some wrinkles that could be unveiled. And I'm hoping that if we, and this again, this is just a possibility, I'm hoping that if we decide to split him out wide a couple of times and use him as a wide receiver and have Devontae on the other side, you're going to have some matchup nightmares, and that could potentially do in the Kansas City defense. That's one thing I think they could do, and that would open up the run game. But again, getting back to Darren Waller, every day that he's sober is a victory. And Darren Waller, regardless of what he does on or off the field, he's a guy who gets the game of life. He understands it. He understands its importance, and he understands his role and what he can do as a professional athlete to help out so many others. And he's done that time and time again. So for that, Heidi, I applaud you for the selection. Great selection of a hero.
And thank you for doing it right now in this moment, in the turning point for his season, really. He's got to step up. He's got to start stepping up.
And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. You can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @KeblerPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. I join Peggy Holmes, the DC Wench, and Angry Trask on Silver and Black Ladies Night.
Peggy, any final thoughts?
There's nothing that I'm hopeful for our Raiders. They could pull out Kansas City. It's going to be a huge moral victory for the team.
And that
Amen.
would be a great way to go into the bye week, too. Absolutely. Raider Nation, we want you with us every step of the way during the regular season, so here's what we'd like you to do. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and podcast stickers. Call us and tell us what you want to know. Throw us an interesting nugget that we could use on one of our upcoming episodes and become a part of what we're doing here. Remember, this is the Only Nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are two easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, as several of you do, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Tom, Thom Jones. I want to also thank all of you for your continued support of the Raider Roots Project. In a couple of weeks, should be one more week, I'm going to be unveiling some exciting news related to the show. So stay patient. Heidi and I have already been in some discussion about it. Stay patient, Raider Nation, with the present, just as with the past. We're going to work through this thing together.
And I'd like to thank Peggy for joining us on the show one last time. Thank you
Absolutely,
so much.
Peggy.
Always
Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure. And I always have fun with you guys. I learned so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Let me put in one additional plug for our listeners. If you haven't checked out Silver and Black Ladies Night yet, please do that. These ladies bring the fire and they bring the knowledge, and they have a lot of fun doing it too. So make sure you jump in for that.
As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
Bye.
All right. Remember, we're not just a nation. We're the only nation. And now we're headed to Kansas City. Raiders.
See you soon.